Welcome everybody to Lais and The Coach. We are live. Happy Monday. We have a special guest today. Team Forever Bikini and Fitness Diva.
Yeah.
Jennifer. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
So excited.
Jennifer P.
Guys,
We have so many Jennifers.
you know.
Yeah. I think everybody's about to find out as we talk to all of them.
I know. As we talked about Jens.
Right.
So Jen, tell us, we are going to talk a little bit about your show Weekend Experience, but we want to take it way back to what made you decide to do something like this?
Well, this year, this 2022, I'm encroaching on a big birthday, a milestone birthday. And, I think over the past few years, I've sort of been, it's been coming, it's been creeping up there. And, each year I try to, think about the year ahead and what I want to accomplish. And, I hadn't really identified anything for that 40 year other than, say yes to more things, step out of my comfort zone. And just as I get older, continue to find ways to grow. And I was following a friend from high school who happens to also be on your team. And I'm watching her go through this journey, and she's posting these photos of herself in bikinis, and I'm like, gosh, she looks amazing. Like, what is she doing? And I can't stop watching. I'm watching like every couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, it's getting closer to her show. Like I followed her whole journey to the point where I finally just reached out and said, you have to tell me what you're doing, because I know that next year is going to be my birthday and I want to look like you look. Like, what is going on? What are you doing? And she gave me sort of the lowdown on what she was doing. And I think my questions were very straightforward. What are you taking? How hard is it? How many hours are you working out a day? Are you miserable? Are you hungry? All these things, because you look great, but I know what that usually takes to look like that. And, I don't know if I can do it. Anyways, I was super, happy to hear that she wasn't doing any of those things. And she said, let me just introduce you to my coach. So, I think that's kind of a long-winded saying that it sort of kept coming to me through this sort of Instagram journey that I was watching. And I thought, you know what, it's always sort of been there. And I'll say like a fitness competition was always in a bucket that sort of never got pulled down. I didn't expect to start that journey at 40, but, sort of in line with my say yes to more things, keep growing, keep pushing. It sort of spoke to me as like, you know what, just do it. Like, why, if you're not going to do it in 10 years, like do it now, do it. You're looking for something like, you've watched someone just do it. Like, so that's why I reached out, and that's sort of how we started.
All right, we're done. That was fucking epic. We don't need to say anything else.
So I don't know if you could see, but every time she moves back, you see how jacked she looks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jacked.
Yeah. I saw the same thing. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't interrupt her.
So you've got a background in fitness, right? Like you've competed in other things. What are the things that you've done?
What are the things that I've done? So I competed when I was younger. I competed in track and field. I competed in cheerleading. I think that's sort of like early competition, but then you sort of went on, went to work a real job, went to have a career. And then I'd say only in my late 20s did I start competing in sort of other things. So, I started with the 5Ks. I started with, moving up to a half marathon. Really, once I had kids and I stopped working full time in a career setting, I sort of needed something to motivate myself to continue pushing from a fitness perspective. So in those times, I did a few marathons. Once you check the box on that, I wasn't fast, I wasn't winning, there was nothing like that going on, but for me it was getting faster than myself. And also just having sort of that goal or that thing to kind of get up and work for, each and every day. And then in 2019, or actually it was probably 2014, I started doing triathlons. So I did some of the shorter distances. But in those, I never really swam and I never cycled before. So those were two new sports that I picked up to complete that. And then I did an Ironman in 2019, and that was sort of on the bucket list, this like list that keeps growing and new things keep getting put on it. But, I wanted to complete an Ironman before I was 40. And so I started when I was 38, just in case it took me a few years, because I thought I can't really bike or swim. So I can run, but it might take me a little bit longer. But luckily for me, I did complete it the first time, because that was a very grueling training and commitment. So yes, I've competed in other things.
I love how she says it like, oh, it's just a triathlon, it's an Ironman, whatever, no big deal.
No, I mean,
Exactly.
I'm a firm believer that like you really can do anything. Like really, I mean, the fact that I could swim 2 miles, you should have seen me the first day of like, I'm going to do an Ironman. And literally my training partner looked over and said, you can't swim. I was like, what do you get? Of course I can swim. I grew up in Florida. Of course I can swim. Not like that. So yeah, but I mean, you just keep every day, you get up and you do it. You try, or you're in such denial that you believe you can do it. And then you just end up doing it. So there you go.
There were two things that I want to circle back to that you said. The first one, so you have kids, how many?
I have 3.
3 kids. How do you navigate? Because, for everybody watching, there's a lot of moms.
You get that so much. Yeah, but I have kids. I'm like,
Right.
so does
I think
literally. Yeah, today someone's like, yeah, but I have like 3 kids. I'm like, so does everybody else.
How do you navigate? Or as a matter of fact, let's use all of this stuff. How did you navigate training for a triathlon and training for something like a fitness competition and being a mom at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I have to give credit where credit's due. I have a super supportive husband. So that I think allows me to take the time that I need to do the things that I do. And, I think that's sort of where it starts for me, only because, there is mom guilt and there are these things that exist, and it is hard to step away if you feel like you don't have the support of the other person to do that. My husband's a big golfer. He plays golf and that's something he loves. I feel like I support him in allowing him to go do those things and take that time for himself. And until I had a thing, I didn't really ever take that time for myself. So I think, in the early days of training for, an Ironman or the triathlon, the longer rides would take place on the weekends, because that's when I could go with other people, which is hard for a mom of 3. And that's when all the kids' sports are going on, and, they're not in school full time during that period of time. And, I think really just having his support and discussing for the week, hey, I've got to get in a 3-hour run this weekend. Like, when's the best time to do that? I think just working together, that was super helpful. So I think, he is number 1, but number 2, I think it's just planning like you plan everything else. I mean, I think that it has to matter to you, and you have to prioritize it the same way that, you do all the other things that are important, and I think putting that emphasis on, it mattering to you. And, I think that's one of the beauties of setting some of these goals, is just, it almost is like, it's coming, you've committed to it. And I work best under that type of, I'll call it stress, but not in a stressful way. But,
Right.
to say like, you can't cheat. You can't, like, the only person, this is going to happen regardless. Like, you need to make sure that, you don't have regret. So give it, make sure you plan for it, make sure you, stand up for yourself and you go do, what it is that you need to do. But I think it's really just making it a priority for you. And that's a huge step, I think, in a lot of mothers for sure, but people in general. We all try to do way too much, and yes, adding one more thing to what is, we all live super busy lives, seems like, something that you probably, either can't or don't feel comfortable, don't want to make time for, but it ends up being the thing that I think is the most fulfilling when you do something like that for yourself, and you do have those wins for you. So yeah, I mean,
and
prioritize.
my other question was, and you said it again while you were saying it, is having that goal. Because when you talk about like when you started running and stuff, like having that thing that would wake you up to make you go do it, right? How important was having a goal bigger than I'm just going to work out because I know I have to work out or I should work out? How important was that to you in order to keep you focused and make it a thing that was so important that it was a must do instead of the like it's a good idea, but I've got something a lot bigger that I'm working toward.
Yeah, I mean, I think people exercise for all different reasons. There's health benefits, and there's also just personal benefits. It feels good. You feel good, there's also the look good part. And, I think, look, I became a little complacent just in, a good marriage and being the mom of 3 kids and sort of accepting my age as being like, well, you're getting older, you're going to be a little rounder, it's not going to come off as easier. You're getting older, I think there was sort of a lot of things over the last 10 years that I sort of was like, for complete aesthetics alone, it didn't feel motivating enough to put in the effort, I guess, for me. And it's not that I wasn't doing it. I was doing it. I was, doing all these other things, I guess. But I think what I didn't realize is some of the things that were making me unhappy were some of it was, just carrying that extra 10 pounds. It was, my arms are softer. I never used to have to work that hard for that. Some of these little things that I think were really bothering me. So yeah, having this goal specifically for me was crazy, right? I mean, I think when I told half of my friends, they burst out laughing and kind of were horrified for me. And look, on the day that I sent my first check-in picture, I was horrified for myself. I was like, I don't know how he's going to make this happen. I've been exercising this body for the last, 10 years, and
too, like
really hard. And I think that was sort of the biggest thing in my mind is I've been doing all these things, but I just needed to do something different because I wanted something different that I just don't think I admitted to myself until I saw somebody else go through it and thought, you know what, like almost like I got to work smarter, not harder, because I've been working hard and it doesn't look the way that I guess that I wanted it to look, or that I needed to feel some of that internal confidence that you sort of lose over time.
You know what's an interesting question, because just on that topic alone, even when we started the conversation, you were talking like when you reached out to your friend and like, how long is this going to take? Like how much is involved and how restrictive, even somebody that's working out as hard as you were, like because to undertake a triathlon, like forget the triathlon
like,
itself.
I could never do any of that.
No, forget the triathlon. The training. For the triathlon, right?
No, it's grueling. Yeah.
It's
probably even worse than triathlon.
How
you gotta do it over and over and over again.
When we laid out that plan, right? Did you feel like this is never going to happen?
Like, this guy does not know what he's talking about.
No, I mean, I went in on a little blind faith, but I will say that I got the meal plan, and to me, it looked like a lot of food. Like I thought, like, oh, okay, like he wants me to eat 20 grams of protein, like all, this, like that's more than I would usually eat, because I feel like I was constantly fighting like inner dialogue, right? Like I get up and I have my protein bar, but now I'm going to have a salad for lunch to stay healthy. But I was starving by the end of the day, and I don't do hungry well, just generally speaking. So then I'm cranky. I'm eating all the goldfish before I've even arrived at the school pickup and telling the kids I forgot their snack, like crazy things, eating all their food, then eating another dinner, like, and more from a just, I don't think I was fueling my body properly. So when I saw the initial plan that you sent, I was like, ooh, like, this is actually pretty good. And even getting in through the first, week or two, I thought like, I I'm not hungry. This is way more food than I would usually consume. So I think that was just a mental shift. And it also, that part felt good because I thought, what I'm looking to achieve, you would think, starvation, deprivation, sort of over exercising, more cardio than is needed, to look like that. And I was pleasantly surprised at what it actually was. I was like, okay, this is interesting. So much so that when I'd have my 2 cookies every night, my husband would be like, are you sure it says that? Like, do we have to have the cookies? You don't eat cookies. And I'm like, now I do. I eat cookies now. And leave me alone. I'm eating these cookies. Like, but it was almost, but that's where I say I went a little blind faith, because I was like, all right, well, clearly you know what you're doing. You've produced all of these, beautiful transformation stories. I mean, everyone looks incredible. And I thought, like, all right, like, I'm all in. I'm going to do it. I can do anything once. So let's just see what happens.
Exactly. There were a couple things
That's a good way to look at it.
in Jenn's story, because one of the things that we hear all the time is, like, I've got all this stuff going on. Like, I want to get started on something like this, but I'm going on vacation. Or I want to get started on this, but this weekend we have a party. I want to get started on something like this, but
in 2 weeks, this is happening. And then after that,
we had a lot of things going on with you, especially at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
How did you navigate through all of that?
So when did you start?
So that I don't have to.
When did she start? When did she start specifically?
Yeah. So I think I ended up starting the beginning of November.
Right.
Right
around
right before all the holidays.
Yeah. And I remember telling you, like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, as much as I love to exercise, I love to live life and have fun and see friends, and I'm social, and, I like to drink and I like to dance, and, I don't know, like, how's this all really, what? Okay. Yep. Okay. Meal plan. Got it. Stick to the thing. 2 cookies or 1 glass of wine. Okay. So I think it was actually, I'm really glad we did start it during that period of time, because it almost let me get into a little bit of a rhythm. Like, I remember in the beginning, even just weighing the food, or, really thinking about how much I put on my plate seemed overwhelming, right? Like, you're like, how am I? So in the beginning, I was like, no, I'm going to need to get a meal plan. Like, somebody's going to have to cook this for me, whatever. And then I ate, very dry chicken for about 3 weeks. And, I thought, this is like, this doesn't taste very good. This is going to be hard. And then when I actually came down to see you guys for the Emergent weekend, and I watched, Lais make the food really quick, I'm like, and it tasted so good. I'm like, why am I eating? Like, I can do this. I know how to cook. I'm a good cook. Like, why am I not just, so I think that, I think the initial onset of it was just, some of it was just, kind of getting into the rhythm of, kind of eating off a checklist, kind of knowing, what was prescribed for that week. And it was a lot of it was kind of the same. So once you sort of got into that pattern, I'd look forward to the cookies at night. I knew I could have my coffee in the morning. Like, it was sort of, it was a lot easier. And then, navigating the holidays, we're actually okay. I mean, as you know, I have to send you photos of my food.
As you know.
So,
as you know.
So Thanksgiving was great. I was like, here's a pig in a blanket ×8. Great. I didn't have 9 because I didn't want to have to take another photo, but I did, I was able to eat and to participate, enjoy. Yeah. And I think, look, when I got back from Christmas and we started, kind of Jan 5 or whatever it was, when I finally got my kids back in school, and I was like, all right, now I'm focused. It was awesome. It got me through this winter. I think if you talk to any of my family and friends, they're all like, I've never seen you happier. Like, usually I'm seasonally depressed. I dislike winter. I'm, complaining much more than I should be about many things in life. And I feel like this year I don't even think winter really, it didn't even bother me. I just kept going right on through it. I had my thing every day. I had, I had my plans. I was just kind of crunching away at kind of everything that was out there. So it was awesome for me.
That's awesome.
That's great. And I think that's kind of the message that we always try to get out. Because when we tell people that, you can still have a life inside of a goal this big, I think it's really hard sometimes for people to believe what we're saying, because everybody's under the same impression that if you're going to pursue a goal like this, it's got to
Take over your life.
It's got to be
Miserable.
boiled chicken and asparagus 4 times a day, and that you're going to be miserable for 12 weeks, but then you're shredded, right? And it's not like that at all. And if anything, the thing that we're trying to stress with a lot of these interviews is always that everybody's got a thing that's still going on, and you can still pursue a goal this big and get a great outcome without giving up all of the other stuff,
Yeah, and no one's doing only this all day. Like,
Right.
that's the other thing, because people used to say it to me all the time, like, yeah, but like you can work out all day. Like, who the fuck, first of all, no one has time for that, even if it's part of your job, right? Even like when we owned the gym, it was like, well, you're at the gym all day. Yeah, working. Like, I'm not training the entire day. It's like everyone's got so many things going on. Everyone's got kids and jobs and husbands and responsibilities and laundry and families outside of their kids. Like, we all have and social time and trips. Like, you're the queen of trips. Like, you were always you were on a trip like right before the show, like 3 weeks before the show. Like, you're like, yeah, I'm over here just gonna have these drinks. Like, we all have things, right? It's like we go out to eat up until like when I did my any show, really, like we were in and out the week of. Like, your life can't stop because this goal is there. Does it require some changes and some habits that need to be shifted? Of course. Does it require commitment, consistency? 1000%, but it doesn't require you stopping living life, because then that means you got to get back to it, and then that means your results aren't really yours, right? Like, you have to be able to do life while you're working toward this goal.
Yeah. No, and I think that there were parameters when I was on vacation, whatever, a month before the show. I wasn't having the full fat rum punch. I was having a diet version that I created while I was there. I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? But it actually, for the better of all of it, I still was able to get the workouts in. They were an hour a day. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, and it can be done if you just, commit to doing it.
You were still drinking a month before your show.
Yeah, yes, I was. I think until he cut it out, like, my husband's birthday was on the Wednesday before the show. Now, I invited friends so that he would, I couldn't partake at that point, obviously, but I still went.
That was the only time.
That was the only time.
That was the only time.
Today.
3 days before.
3 days before the show. This is not a good idea.
It's funny though, like, once you sort of navigate that. I was at a 40th birthday the Saturday before the show. It can be done. It can be done.
Yeah.
And it's
Now let's talk
not that hard.
Right. Let's talk about the other stuff, the DIVA, blinged out fun stuff. How was that part of the journey for you?
That was a ton of fun. I think that look, back in the day, I pursued fashion as a early career, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it, but I couldn't afford to work there. They didn't pay enough. I just couldn't figure out how to make it work in New York City and have a job in fashion. So I feel like, as I've gotten older, and, I've always tried to stay up on different things. But as you get older, and as you become a mom, and as you become, part of any social setting, you sort of conform to sort of where you are. So this for me was just an opportunity to kind of just completely make a right turn and derail from sort of, a more conservative, more
mom life.
And it was fun. It was so fun. I feel like that was so much a part of the journey in itself, like thinking about the outfits and, coming up with the theme. And I mean, I loved all of that. That was a ton of fun.
And the posing side of things, the photo shoot side of things.
Yeah. So the posing, that was completely foreign for me. And, you know, I still have a lot of work to do there. That I feel like that was the hardest part, was sort of only because I could see how it was done well. And I just am not there yet. Like, I just couldn't, I don't know. It was like, it was hard.
Amazing.
It was really
amazing. Hard for everybody.
That part was hard. And then, yeah, the photo shoot stuff. I mean, I think in time that becomes more natural, but I enjoyed learning, you know, what we did learn. And it was fun. The day was fun. I think just getting to spend a day sitting around with girls doing your hair and makeup, and, you know, like, who gets to go do that? No one makes plans to like go feel great about themselves that day.
Yeah.
You know, in Florida. I felt it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, we've said that so often lately, to kind of look at this more like that as an opportunity to do something for you, instead of, you know, the complications of a fitness competition.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We say it like, we almost like try to compare it to like something that you would do with your girlfriends. Like, would you go spend a weekend in Napa or in Cabo, like, and just, you're going to go to the beach and you're going to go to a spa day and you're going to go wine tasting, right? It's like, whatever the thing is, like a weekend for you, which a lot of times women don't do unless it's like their wedding.
Yeah. No, I know.
Like their wedding or like their bachelorette party, or, you know, but we don't really like set aside time for ourselves, like in general, not only in the everyday stuff like training or whatever, but just like, okay, I need a weekend for me, like to recharge, to hang out with friends, to do something that makes me feel good, that makes me feel pretty, like you said.
Yeah.
That's, like you said, who does that? No one does it, but like people
No one
should.
does that.
2 times
Or
a year.
if you do have something planned and it is a trip of some sort, you know, unless you've been on sort of a goal working towards that, you don't feel great about yourself. You're thinking, you know, I don't want to be in a bathing suit in Mexico right now. It's winter at home and I haven't been working towards anything yet because, you know, I'm still getting over the hump of the depression that it's cold out or whatever it is. Like, you know, I think that it also just was such a nice, it was such a nice way to sort of be like, it was a milestone and you're like, okay, and then we've got this weekend, and, you know, you plan for it, you know, it ahead of time, you've been, you know, all the things leading up to it, you're excited about. And even if you're scared, there's still that excitement building. And if it feels like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I said this, you know, the day before the show, like, there's something about me that thrives off that uncomfortable feeling, or else I wouldn't do stuff like this. But it's almost like jumping out of an airplane. Like, I think that feeling is amazing. Like, it feels scary and exhilarating and, you know, whatever. I feel like,
have you done that?
I have done it. Yeah.
Oh,
a long
wow.
time.
That is literally my biggest fear, like, of life.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't even like being in the airplane in the air.
Yeah.
So like the thought of jumping out,
No, that's
no way.
so
that
liberating. You should definitely do that.
I will have a fucking heart attack. Like, guaranteed, that is the last you will see of me. Like, I can't.
Yeah, no, I think that it's the journey was awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about show weekend. So all this build up, all this hype, and you finally arrive, right? We get to that weekend, to that moment where it's really going to happen.
It's happening. It's
Yeah.
real.
How was, like, when did it kick in for you? Was it like when you get to the hotel? Was it after your check-in? Like, when did it sink in that you're really doing this?
I don't know that it's really sunk in, I'll be honest. No, I was in a different space. I watched others have like these big emotional reactions to the nerves, and I don't know, like, I guess I just kept thinking to myself, like, geez, I've looked better than I've looked in however long. Like, yes, it's still like, I don't know that I need to be out in a bikini in front of everyone. Fine. But I don't really know anybody out there. So like, fine. I don't know. I didn't find that I had this like big emotional reaction to it, which is, I don't know, I guess it was a little bit of a weird thing that I didn't have that, but yeah, I guess right as I was standing backstage was I like, oh my
Okay.
gosh, here we go. And that's when that like part that I actually enjoy where I'm like, oh my gosh, like here I go. And it was, I'm like, and I guess in some ways I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I could fall, you know, like when I did the Ironman, I could have drowned, you know, I could have fallen off my bike. Like there was
Yeah,
just
your parachute could have not opened, so.
parachute could have not
That's one too.
me, it just kind of felt like, and maybe it's also a bit of a coming of age thing too, where I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care anymore. I don't care at all. Like, and I keep thinking to myself, like, I look better than I've looked in a really long time. Like, and this was the point. And, you know, let's like, let her rip. Let's do it. Like, whatever. So yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. I didn't have that pressure, I guess, or that,
That's awesome.
yeah, I had fear, sure, but like
Right,
in a
right.
productive way.
That's
And-
awesome.
And how was the show weekend experience for you itself? Like, you know, doing the hair, the tanning, the
Yeah.
face, the hair, how was that?
Backstage, the team.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And I think like I've said this to you guys before, but I think what was so cool is you get to know some of these other ladies that are on the journey with you, and they're all different, and everybody's why is a little bit different too. There's similarities for sure, but they're not, there's no two that are exactly the same. But it was fun to see everybody, you know, a month or 2 months, whenever it was prior to the show, and have sort of that weekend, the night out, the all day, you know, photo shoot where we really got to talk to each other. We got to talk about why we were doing it, you know, and we sort of, everybody had been, you know, whatever, 12 weeks on their journey, some much longer, but it was awesome to have met all those women at that point, to then see them show weekend, and sort of, not that we needed validation, but it almost was, there was something so comforting and like, you know, watching another, you know, new friend that you had seen, you know, 12 weeks ago or whatever it was, and being like, oh my gosh, look at you, like you look amazing. And really, I think being able to validate that, and then vice versa, you know, you've really made, I can't believe, you know, how different you look or how much you've achieved. And I just think that I guess knowing people that were going through the same process, the same journey, all different reasons why, you know, sort of had that time to sort of be like, oh my gosh, like before you even step on stage, like, I'm so proud of you. Like, look what you've, you know, been able to do. And I know you are going through so much, or whatever it was. So I think that part for me was awesome. I think that was great. And yeah, I mean, I think that the rest of the show, I think the WBFF does a great job of making it fun and bringing out the fashion and having all the hair and makeup and getting to talk to all the different competitors while you're getting your hair and makeup done. Like I met, you know, so many women just sitting there in the chair, not knowing, you know, that this one was a pro and this is her first show, like not knowing anything until you start talking to these ladies. And then seeing them all, you know, sort of done up, you know, in their bikinis backstage, and being like, oh my gosh, she won. She's so nice. Like I was so excited for so many people that I like didn't know prior at all. But I'm like, you know, I sat next to her at hair and makeup, like, and I knew, you know, I thought it was awesome. It was
That's
really,
so
really
cool.
great.
Was that surprising to you that it was like actually like that and not like catty or a lot of girls that were full of themselves, or did you not even think, like, did you not even have anything you were expecting?
So, you know, I guess I don't know if I had any real expectations one way or the other, but I guess in theory, you know, a lot of women together being judged on their physique would probably breed like all the things that, you know, could potentially be a flaw in a woman's personality. So, you
That's
know,
one way to put it.
yeah, I think that like, I mean, I guess why wouldn't you believe that was sort of what you would get? And I'm sure there's to some degree some of that, but that is not, I mean, even standing in line to go out for, you know, the awards and the gown, we stood for a long time, and I, you know, started chatting with the woman in front of me, and we had like this awesome conversation, you know, and she came out and told me, she's like, I really hope I win. I really wanted my pro card. You know, this is my third show. And, you know, I think it was just, everybody was really normal and nice. So that was not my experience. But I don't know that I really put too much concern on whether it was going to be, because I kind of thought I signed up for this anyways. Like, there's nothing like signing up for judgment. I was like, in the best.
Let's pay. Let me pay you to judge me.
Please.
But
In any other sport, I guess, there isn't really.
Let me pay you to judge on how I look.
Well, or I guess, and I'll flip that on how hard I've worked, I think is also too, right? Like you could work really hard and like your mom could be like, oh, you look really, really hungry. And you're like, well, dang, like, no, mom, look at my glutes. Like, look at my abs. Like, like this is, I don't look hungry. I look like strong.
Working here.
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
I mean, at the end of the day, like that's always one of the things that you see everybody on stage work hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you don't know what anybody's starting point is.
Exactly.
You don't know how hard it was for them to get there. But at the end, everyone made it, You made it to the stage. So it doesn't matter when the journey started, whether it took a year or show 3 or show 1, everyone made it, you know? And I think that may be where the camaraderie is, where
we all have that in common.
right? Everyone did it.
Yeah.
And you're there now. And it's like, it's done. Because at the end, everybody backstage isn't in control of what's going to happen. No one is. So
where you're looking around and you're like, everyone's nervous, everyone's excited, everyone's fucking hungry, right? Like everyone works hard, everyone dealt with something during their prep. Like there's just so much in common, regardless of, like you said, the starting point of how anybody looks, anyone's wise, right? Like that almost doesn't matter, but it's like you have that in common, you're there. So it's like, all right, we're all in the same boat here, and you just go and you enjoy it.
You know what I've never asked, like, and it's weird, I've never asked it because it's always a story we tell. How did it feel when it was done? Like once you were off stage, like what was going through your mind when the show was finally over, and like you finished? Now what?
I mean, so there was a big part of me that was like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe that I actually followed through and completed it in some ways. But I think my next feeling right after, like, I guess pride and accomplishment, that pride feeling, like you cross the finish line, was sort of, well, no, like no, that's not it. Like, wait, what? So, and all I kept thinking, like, after that was, and it didn't help, the next morning is Easter Sunday, and, the kids have their Easter baskets, and I, have the chocolate. I'm like, oh, no. This is like not like, so from now on, I'm just going the other direction. Like, no, this isn't going to work for me. So, but I did have a day or two where I was like, all right, like, settle back in. I went out for a walk, then 8 miles later, I'm like, yep, okay, well, what am I going to do now? So, you did a great job, and you give a reverse diet. And I think that's nice to have, to just keep sort of
an immediate plan.
It is, because otherwise, when you finish a marathon, usually your body hurts so badly that you're like, I'm good for running for a while. And then you're not usually signing up for the next one. Those who are very gifted at running are in a different space, but I'm just talking about the average person. So it felt different, because I got off the stage, I felt like I looked better than I've looked in my whole life. And I'm like, okay, so now every day forward is a day backwards. Like, no. I can't do that. So I think that was different than finishing most things. Like the Ironman, I was like, boom, put that bike away. I don't want to see that for a while. So anyways, I think this is a little bit different. And I also think it attests to the way that you guys do things, in that even in the last week, it wasn't so restrictive that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat real food again. Like, I feel like I kept waiting for you to like pull the cord and be like, here's the magic bag of all the stuff. Now take that. and you're going to get there. And like, it just never happened. Like, and I thought, I really just kept waiting. Like even my husband kept asking like, so like, what'd he say? I'm like, no, he didn't say anything. He said, eat what I've been eating. Like, just keep going. I was like,
I remember, do you remember like at the very beginning that he would ask you, did your weight change? Have you lost weight?
oh my God.
Yes, I remember those posing sessions. You'd be like, my husband keeps asking me if my weight's dropping, and I'm like, don't worry about my weight.
Don't worry. Well, and so that was, I mean, yeah, I can actually, I think I'm over it now, but that was a hard one for me because as much as I've exercised my whole life, I've never cared about the scale. Now, part of it is because I am more muscular, and I've always sort of been like, I'm a heavy person, generally speaking, but it's always been sort of cut. But as I've gotten older, I was just a heavy person and just, but I used to run to eat and do all these things, but I never really got on the scale routinely. So for this to get on the scale every day and be living more regimented, I was expecting like, come on. And it really, yes, in the beginning to the end fluctuated about 10 pounds, which for me is a lot because it doesn't usually fluctuate that much. But yeah, having that as like an, added into my daily life was hard for me. And then yes, having my husband who is very supportive and very, very interested in my doings, he was always, yeah. I was like, stop asking. You'll know when it changes. Stop asking. When it changes, it's going to be full court press. You will know. Of course, on the days that it did, I was like, guess what? But yeah, I think in the end, it became far less about that number. But until you see the changes, I don't think you can get your head around that completely.
Hard.
So
it's hard because you're kind of waiting for that to shift to validate the work. And that's what everyone ties it to. But once you physically look different, when you see like your progress picture side by side, even if you don't see it in the mirror, because that takes a while. But when you see those two pictures side by side, or you do measurements and you're like, holy shit, like, okay, physically I'm changing, then that becomes a validation and the scale becomes less important. But at first, everyone's waiting for the scale. Like it's inevitable.
Well, because you're looking at it every day, right? And you're doing all these things you're doing all these things differently.
Yeah.
And so that you're expecting like, okay, it's not working. No, that's not really, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time.
It might not always shift as much as people think because the body is, shifting, but that's not necessarily going to mean you're losing X amount of pounds on the scale, right?
Correct. So, yeah. No, it's true.
So can we talk about what's next for you?
Sure.
Have you not told anybody?
No, I haven't really. I mean, I knew you were going to ask me, so I guess I knew. Yeah, no, I think there's been this weird sense of like, I don't want it to be over. Like I feel like I've achieved so much in such a short amount of time that I'm like, oh, like, what could I achieve if I kept going? And I also just think like, I mean, we didn't really talk about this, but I also think it sets such a good example for my kids to just see me trying something new and like getting into it. And even though it's, difficult or I have to do it every day, it almost just shows them that discipline that I expect out of them. And I think that, like, I mean, my son asked last week, he's like, well, what do you have to do today? And I didn't have really much to do at that point. I was like, well, today I'm going to go for a long walk. And he was like, oh,
loser.
Yeah, like, I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I do think, they're little athletes and, we expect them to stay on top of the things that, they need to do to get the results that they want. My sons both have big expectations of their hockey games. And, that means going to practice when you may not feel like it. And that means like these little sort of things that it's just nice to be able to sort of display that on the other side,
Yeah, and you've sent pictures of like your kids in the gym, like, doing your workouts.
Yeah. Well, so they didn't often see it because they're at school, the weekends they do, if I have something left undone, I'll say I have to go work out or whatever it is, but they don't really see because they're at school. So, yeah, when we were on vacation, you know, I had to get it done, and I had to sometimes take a kid, and, you know, and whatever. And it was great. My sons were, they were like, we need to do our sit-ups today. You know, we're going to do a mile every day. We're going to do all these things while we're on vacation. You know, I thought, you know, there's worse things to copy. So,
right. And
Yeah.
that seems to be a recurring theme with all the moms. It's like the leading by example. You know, you have healthy habits, you're showing up for yourself, you're trying something new, you're going to keep going even on the days that you're tired. In your example, you know, whatever you're going to do next, it's like it shows them that you keep at it and that you keep improving, like all those things that you carve out time for yourself, that you, you know, like it's so important. It's getting out of your comfort zone. Like there's so many lessons, like everything you get out of it, so do they, just by watching and being a
just
part.
by watching. Yeah. So bringing me back to what am I going to do next? So I feel like, you know, they get out for the summer, and then, you know, I have them home and I have them around. So, you know, I kind of feel like while my foot's on the gas, I'm just going to keep pushing. And yes, go back down to Orlando in June. So they'll get out of school. I'll go do that competition, and then, you know, have a little bit of a reprieve for the summer with a very, you know, thought out plan, so that I don't, you know, go the other way. But
we're getting back on
so
stage.
excited. I'm so excited. You look so amazing. You did not look like you needed any posing work. Like you said, obviously we're gonna continue to create magic, and there's always more we can do, but you rocked it. Like, right? Like you would have never even known that it was your first time on stage. And I'm so excited that we get to see it all again in 7 weeks.
100%. And there were so many things that you said that hopefully when Bree edits this, like there's so many in here. But my last question is for the person watching, because, you know, same thing I said before, a lot of moms watch, a lot of people watch, they're on the fence and they're like, man, you know, I really want to do something like that, and they have all these buts. Like, what do you say now that you've done it to that person that's on the fence and doesn't really know, you know, what to do?
Yeah, I mean, I say do it. You know, I don't think that any trip or any milestone birthday or any date is gonna quite shift you mentally quite like this will. Just because it's not big enough. It's not concrete enough. It doesn't require all the things. And I think that, yes, the stepping on the stage in a bikini is scary, especially from wherever you're starting, you know, but I also think that, you know, showing up, you know, we talk about this, you guys talk about this all the time, but showing up for yourself as many times as you're going to need to reach that goal for yourself is where actually the biggest magic is going to happen. Like, yes, your body is going to change, and yes, you know, you're going to feel great, but you're going to feel great because, you know, 7 days a week, you had to think about you, and you were making choices for you and not necessarily, you know, everyone else, which, you know, but yeah. And I think, you know, look, like anything else, if it matters to you, you make time for it. So, or if it scares the crap out of you, you make time for it. So either way.
And I think that's a good point that you made, because just because you're making choices for you every day doesn't mean that you're not doing it for everybody else.
Yeah.
They can coexist, right? You can show up for everybody you love and still also show up for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's an either or with moms, and it doesn't have to be that way.
And it shouldn't be that way, because they need to see that you have something that matters to you. Like, I don't think, you know, endless giving to children is the answer at all times, you know, like they need to hear, we're going to do you today. It's all you after 10 o'clock, but from 9 to 10, I have to go do this workout. So come down with me and watch me, you know, hang here for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. And my kids are a little bit older now, so it's a little bit different, but it can get done. It's just, and it's almost good for them to hear, not now, my time, like, then it's all you. Because it also just reminds them that, like, you're a person too, and you have things that you want to do, and, you know, they need to support you as well. It teaches them so many things.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
My last question, I think you've already answered it like 10 different ways, but I'm still going to ask it just in case there is something else. What was the most impactful thing of this whole experience for you?
I think it was surprising to me. And I said this to you guys, you know, before I even stepped on the stage. Like, I think for me, it was doing something new. It was, and not just, you know, it's not like I never lifted weights before, but it was doing something that was like so out of left field. It's almost like, you know, all the fish are swimming this way and I've decided I'm going to go swim this way. And there was something so liberating about that for me. So yeah, that was just, I've always wanted to do this. I'm going to go do this. And I know that like everyone else thinks it's crazy, but I'm going to go give this a go. So that was one thing that I think was important, and mattered to me after all this was said and done. But I think it really was just the way that I feel about myself, you know. And I think if you had asked me when I started, like, oh, are you self-conscious? I would have said, no, like, I'm not. I've never been really that person. But the way that I feel now, there was growth in that. And some of it is just like, you know, dusting off, you know, some sort of years of being behind the scenes in my family. So some of it was that, but others is just new too. You know, I'm stepping into this decade in a couple of months and I feel great, and I should feel great. And I think I can only appreciate it now more than I could have if I had done this journey at 20, because of where I've been. So I do feel like, yeah, I think it was, what was the most was more internal than it was external. The external is awesome, but the way that I feel about myself and yeah, creating the time for myself, and in a way that is sort of, you know, that the results are also benefiting myself, you know, like, I think it's all those things.
I
That's
love
awesome.
that. That's so good. I can't believe you had something else to add. I'm like, she already touched on all the impactful things, but here we go. That was
This
amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
This is fucking epic. Like, I'm gonna rewatch it.
For
Everyone that just watched it needs to rewatch it.
agreed. And honestly, like, this is exactly why we do these post-show interviews, because a lot of times, you know, on this side as coaches, we're always trying to encourage people to, you know, work and do the work and eat that. But it's so great when you hear the transformation story and not just see the picture, because the words and the experience that somebody goes through is really what we want to share. So thank you so much for sharing. For any of you watching, listening, if you have questions about anything, put them in the comment box. This will be on YouTube and Spotify and iTunes. And
I just want to add, because I was looking really quick, every time that we have someone on the show that just did a competition, I always message like, hey, would you want to be on the show? Tell your stories, your experience, you know, not sure if you've ever done one before. And 9 out of 10 times people are like, no, I've never done it, but sure. And Jen was like, no, I've never done one, but let's give it a try. It's like, if people watch sometimes and they think like, yeah, but she's super outgoing and she can talk in front of a camera. And it's like, no one ever starts. Like, everyone sees the end without realizing everything that it took to get there. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't have done this, you know, 6 months ago, but just the fact that you can say yes to more things and do things as the new, you know, reinvented into Jen 2.0. You know,
but it also builds, like, saying yes builds on yes too, because it is those little wins of confidence, like, you know, just to trying new things. Like, my kids have surfed for almost 10 years and I've never gone surfing ever. And I surfed, like, they did a surfing lesson and I was like, I'm going to surf this year because it's a year of yes for me. You know, I just feel like it just perpetuates, you know, sort of, where you're like, I'm going to try and I'm going to, you know, why not? And for the kids to see it too, that like, why not go try? Yeah. I mean, why not? What's the worst that can happen? Yeah. You may not like it. That's different. But like,
now you know.
Now you know.
Yeah.
I
love that.
So, anyways, this guy's
like, share, comment. We can talk forever. We need a drink with this podcast. I'm like, this required a glass of wine or a martini or something.
For sure.
It's Jen P in the house.
Jen, thank you so much for sharing. I honestly, like, definitely for all of you, make sure you rewatch this, because this was, you know, gold. So
Yes.
peace out, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.